Okay, so I should be able, okay, good. I'm seeing some drag over there. That should be good. Well, so now what I wanted to, there's a lot of things that we can actually talk about in the locations and walkarounds, but that seems to be really when people are asking how do they take it further than a single picture with smoke and fire, there seems to be confusion around using the locations and walkarounds. So for example, we wanted to make this very simple in order to make it so you don't have to read a lot or watch a lot. So if you just have essentially single pictures, being able to click and drag smoke and add timing and things like that should be fairly straightforward. Certainly we can get into that more about doing those effects once we've focused on when we've talked about doing the walkarounds. But right now you'll notice when you actually create a single picture, there is no way to navigate because this simulation just has a single view. If I now go back and I can look and see at, let's say, this one here called Halifax, which you'll see in a moment, now you will have this navigation arrow show up. And so there's a lot of confusion, well, not a lot of confusion, but I mean some people are wondering first how to make that show up. And then second, how do you actually, once you how do you set the navigation such that you can make it move from location to location? And so as you see over here in this scenario, I'm making it go from one position to another. I'm going so I can actually set any of these arrows to go to my different locations and then set them back. So what I'm going to talk about today, focus on, is really how you actually would go about doing that. Probably the simplest example would be something where you're just, let's say you're showing up at your alpha side and you want to do a simple walk around. So we're going to go here to Bravo, to Charlie, and I guess that's Delta, back at Delta, or just how you actually go back from Alpha to Delta. It all starts with having the initial scenario. What I'm going to do here, again, is going to be creating a new scenario, and I will just call it, we'll call it house, and I select a photo from the disk, and let's say, for example, I am going to go to a, let's see which pictures I have over here. I will take looks like, I'm going to just, thought I would have, I will take a picture of this house in front. So now by default, we really just have the single house, and you'll see editing house. When we want to, let's add some smoke to this. Let's just say we're going to go here. I'm going to add some turbulent smoke. Put that right there, and whatever I actually call this location, let's say that this is going to be my initial view. It looks like, depending on what you want to call this, maybe this is an Alpha Bravo view, but it really is just a single picture. So now I'm over here, that's my single picture, and now, of course, I'm going to want to look around this. So in this situation, I have a second picture, but I'm only at a single location. This menu up at the top here, the one that's supposed to look like a map marker, is how I create new locations. So when I bring that down, this is a scrolling menu. I'm going to be creating a second location. A second, I mean, whether it's a Bravo side or a Delta or wherever it happens to be. So I click on New Location, and let me say, I think I actually have another Alpha. Let's say I'm going to call it Alpha Road. I think that's the other picture I have for this. And now, at this point, I can set a background. So I'm going to go here and choose a photo from my disk, and I think I'm going to take this picture over here. So of course, you want to have your photos arranged to what you want. And there's a box down here, Copy Initial Location. The purpose of this is when you are creating a location, you're going to be creating smoke and fire and effects and things like that on top of it. Often, since we don't have a copy and paste in the program yet, it's easier once you've created, let's say we've created our Alpha Bravo view, to just copy the assets which are the smoke and fire, that's what we mean, any of those things, from whatever one of your other locations into this new location that we're creating. So it's just a little bit of a shortcut rather than having to recreate all your smoke and fire again on your second picture or third or wherever. And so once you've copied that smoke over to the new location, then it's easier to just delete or remove or change. And you know that the effects that you've created in that location are going to match the other ones exactly. So I'm creating my I'll just call it A side road over here. And now once I've created that, I did copy that over the effects, so that's why I have this smoke, which is copied exactly from my other picture, the one that I selected. And at this point, if this smoke is still visible, I can just move this around. Now, when I'm done, maybe I add some other things in here. I'll just add, I'll leave it alone actually, but I could add here other smoke that may not have been visible or not so visible from the other pictures. And if I look at my location menu, now I actually have two locations here. I have what's the initial location and I have a road. And this will grow as you create new locations. And if you need to access more than just the two, they will just get piled on beneath here and you scroll to get them. What you'll notice also, it's telling you right at the top which location you're actually editing. So before it was just editing house, the simulation. Now it's telling you that you are actually at the A road direction. Sorry, the location. And if I wanted to switch back, let's see. So if I want to actually, what I just did for DRE who logged in, I just muted the microphone. If you want to speak on the phone, just make a little note in the chat area, and I'll give you the microphone. So if I want to go back to initial location, I just click on initial location and I can do my editing. Now these locations are completely separate now. Now it's called initial location by default. If we wanted to change that name, I can go here into the location menu and just rename it. So once you have more than one location, just actually calling it initial location is a little, it's hard to figure out, well, what was it? So I can actually go back here and say, this is my, I'm going to call it my Alpha Bravo corner. And now you'll see if I'll see in my list and everything, it won't be initial location anymore. It'll be Alpha Bravo corner and Alpha Road. So now if I actually test the simulation, I play it, I'm here at Alpha, but I don't have my navigation menu here yet. That's because even though I've created two locations, and I actually can bring this menu down and go to this map function and switch over, that's Alpha Road. If I click over, I can go Alpha Bravo corner. I can switch back and forth, but I still haven't given the user any way to navigate. That's where the navigation comes in. So I'll take a break just to see first, did anyone have any questions you want to put out there about what I've talked about using this location? Anyone? I'm going to actually mute all the people. If you want to type a question in the chat box, I'll be able to see that. And I can unmute your mic. Everyone, okay, everyone doing well. So again, this is really, really simple. Let me also, let's add another location here as well, just to make it more interesting. Let's say this is going to be, we're going to make our arrival location. And we're arriving, I'm going to go find a picture of what it might be, what it might look like at arrival. I'm going to take, let's see, I will take a picture of, let me take another house picture over here. This might be our arrival location, and I might want to copy again. I'm going to do our AB corners assets, so I'm going to be creating a new location, but I'm calling it arrival, and I'm copying just some assets because I already had created AB here. So if this were, maybe this is coming over here. Of course, you can always adjust the background pictures and things if you wanted to make it bigger or bigger or smaller. That's something people may not automatically see. Adjust background photo if they wanted to make this zoomed in or zoomed out. You could do that. Let's call this one our arrival. So now we have three locations. We've got arrival, Alpha Road, and Alpha Bravo corner. And so what I'm going to do is start hooking up the navigation. When I'm when I am editing element, I'm going to see I'm still editing that black smoke there. I am going to now say in the location menu, you'll see there's new location, rename, and set navigation. So if I go to set navigation, now it's going to let me set up the arrows that I want to get to. And the way you kind of read this is by saying set navigation for arrival. So imagine that we're now at the arrival position and we now want to decide which arrow is going to take us into the into whichever other locations that we want. And so if I'm at arrival, maybe I want this top arrow here, and I click on the arrow I want, and I say, well, where is it going to go? Well, let me say it's going to go to that A road. When you notice there, it went from pink, and then once I clicked on what's the destination. Now, some people forget kind of this gets blended in. We're setting the navigation for the arrival location. So where we're setting up, and we say from the arrival, which direction are we going? Sometimes these arrows can look like it's one arrow for a particular side, like Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, whatever. But really the way to read this is I'm at a particular location. I can assign any arrow to get to any other location. These arrows aren't fixed locations. They're not designed to go to a fixed location. So if I go here to Alpha Road, now when I'm done here, if I actually see I'm at the arrival location, you'll see once I actually start the simulation, when I press the up, it advanced over to that location, that Alpha Road. So now you notice also actually something happened. We're at our Alpha Road location, and the down arrow now is going to take us back to arrival. We didn't really say make the down arrow take us back to arrival. That was something that happened automatically. We're going to see how that works. So I still am not getting to my my alpha side here. I'm still at alpha. I am still at my arrival, and I'm getting to sort of my Alpha Road. So if I actually go here, I'm running the simulation. I go back to edit. I'm editing the arrival location. I'm going to go back now and say, okay, if I'm at the Alpha Road, that's where I've now said I go to arrival to Alpha Road, and now let me say I want to go over to the Alpha Bravo corner. So I'm at the Alpha Road. I say set navigation. Now it automatically put in the back arrow here to go back to arrival because arrival went directly to this Alpha Road. And this was really the key thing of what was making it add that extra back arrow. And what we'll see in a moment here is you'll see if let's say I'm at my Alpha Road and I want to move to Alpha Corner by going left. So if I click, here I'm Alpha Road, I click left, and then it goes pink and it's saying choose the destination when left is pressed. So if I say Alpha Bravo Corner, now I'm over here and it turns red. And now the key thing, what we're going to see is that when I clicked red here to make it red, this thing called reciprocal navigation, that's the thing that was automatically making the opposite direction work. So if I actually go back here and now say I'm going to go over to my Alpha Bravo corner, and if I set the navigation for my Alpha Bravo corner, we're going to see that the right arrow is pointing back at the Alpha Road. And the reason it automatically added that Alpha Road was because when we were setting up our navigation, it said reciprocal navigation yes. We're going to see what happens when we turn that off. So right now, since we only have these three locations, we're okay with Alpha Bravo corner going right back to Alpha Road. So we basically set up our navigation here. I click OK. I'm here at this is my Alpha Bravo Road. It has the right key that goes back to Alpha Road. It has the down key, the down arrow, which goes back to arrival. And it really has set it up for us already. So what's happening here is that we've set up our navigation by basically saying where we want to go, and then the reciprocal navigation is adding the link back to where we came from automatically. So what we're going to do now is to create a very simple walk-around, because that's really the easiest. While I load these other pictures, I'm going to use Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, make it a little bit easier. But does anyone have any questions? You can certainly put any kind of questions into the chat window. Seems like we're okay. We're okay. So let's actually go back with a commercial. But Frank has asked you, do the center buttons do anything? The answer is yes. They're also arrows. They can just be assigned to whatever you want them to be. So it's they could be maybe going up to a menu. They could be going to a change of the condition. You might have one condition that is, let's say, incipient, and then the next condition, a new location that you're using might be that same side, but it might be maybe a free burn or some other type of condition. You can assign that any of the arrows, but particularly the middle one is almost implying changing condition. So you could assign that middle arrow to go up and switch over to a location that had that has the other effects, the other types of conditions that you want. But there's nothing special really about the center buttons different from the arrows. So I'm going to go here to commercial, and I'm actually going to go pick. I'm going to pick. This is I'm going to pick a location here. So here we have a commercial structure, a gas company, and now I could start putting in my effects and everything, and that may be the most natural way. Put in your smoke and fire. So let's actually go here and add in some, I'll add in some smoke. We'll have just a basic gas going on here. It's sort of a diffuse. We don't quite exactly know what is smoking here. Darken it down a little bit. And maybe I will now also put some fire. Now Frank is also asking, can it be set to change condition of all sides? Now right now it really is just it's flipping over to a different location. So it doesn't change for all sides. It just moves to a location. Let's say, well, let's actually we'll do that for right now and show you how that would work. I'm going to put some fire, let's say, in the window here. I'm going to drop that down beneath. And let me actually make that a little bit more opaque. Maybe we've got some kind of fire going on inside that structure. So now when I have this here, let's now go and work on the other sides, and I'll come back to what Frank was asking about changing the conditions for the side. And Frank's saying it can change condition to a new location, and from there, can you only allow it to go to a new set of sites? And that's exactly what you would do. You would have it change to a new location, and then your new location you would link to only the locations that are appropriate for that condition. So we're going to do that with this scenario once we get our basic walk-around done. So now I'm going to create a new location here to say that was my alpha side. I'm going to call this one Bravo. And I'm not going to actually copy the location there, but I am going to set the background photo for my Bravo picture. I'm going to create that over here, and let's now also create my Charlie. So I'm going to do a new location. I'm going to say here's my Charlie, set my background, and let's say this is that's going to be my Charlie side. And I'm going to create that. I'm not copying anything. I'm now going to create a new location for my last one, my Delta. So I set Delta, I say select photo from location, and there's my Delta. And I create that. Now, if we look here in the edit, you see I've got initial location, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. This is telling me at the top here, editing Delta. So I'm going to now switch over to editing initial location. I'm going to rename this one also, kind of just so I don't forget later. I'm just going to call this one Alpha. I'm going to actually, let's see, call this one Alpha. I'm done over here, and now I've got my, you see with location, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. So now, if I run the scenario, I've got Alpha, but again, no way of really getting to Bravo, Charlie, Delta, whatever. So what I'm going to do is go to set navigation. So if I set navigation here, again, I'm reading as set navigation for alpha. And so so imagine you're at the alpha side, and we're going to say, okay, let's make the left button. So I click on left, go to Bravo. And let's make right go to Delta. Now, what this thing over here, reciprocal navigation, is doing is when I set left going to Bravo, it's automatically now setting from the Bravo right, which is the opposite one. So it's just right directly across the pattern. So it's setting Bravo right going back to Alpha. And when I set Delta here, when I said from Alpha go right to Delta, on the Delta side, it's setting left going back to Alpha. So we'll see that as we switch over to the Bravo and Charlie side. So if I hit, so that's why reciprocal navigation is useful, because I don't have to enter as many of the links. It implies that if I'm going one way, then when I get to the target, the destination, it's going to send me back the other way with the opposite arrow. So I go here now, and I go now to my Bravo location, and I go here to set navigation. It's automatically filled in this arrow. It automatically filled that with reciprocal. So I'm going to just continue my circuit, and I'm going to say left. So we're setting for navigation. So from Bravo, left is going to go to Charlie, and I'm basically done. And now I'm going to go back and say, okay, I'm at Charlie, and I'm going to then say set navigation, and we already had the Bravo going back to Bravo was automatically set. So left, when I'm at Charlie, is going to go to Delta, and I'm done. So now, as I continue around, I'm going to go to Delta, but now you can imagine when I set navigation, I already have these two sides that are there, because when I was editing Alpha, I had set it to go to Delta. When I editing Charlie, I'd set it to go to Delta, so the reciprocal thing wasn't necessary. Reciprocal thing actually set everything up for me. So if you would turn reciprocal off, and we're going to see that, let's say I'm actually going to create a new location with my arrival. I'm going to say here's my arrival location, and I'm going to select a photo from the disk, and I'll just pick, let's see, which one are we going to pick? I would have something, let's just say I'm going to take something like this over here. I set my arrival. Now, if I want arrival to go forward, let's say over to my Alpha side, I'm going to go here and say set navigation and arrival forward. Now I don't want reciprocal. Let's say I want the arrival just to go to the Alpha side, but I don't want them to return to the arrival. So I would turn reciprocal navigation off. I want to do this before I lock it in. So if I click on forward and I say go from forward to Alpha, now what this is doing is it's saying go forward, going to Alpha, but don't, when we get to Alpha, don't make a backlink to go back to arrival. So if I actually go here to see that, if I switch over to my Alpha side and I see now what my navigation is, you'll see it didn't add any links into this. It didn't automatically enter the back way to get back to arrival. And so that's really how now I've set this whole thing up. I'm here at arrival, or maybe I want to go back to my, I'm here at Alpha arrival over here, and now there's the there to go forward to arrival. You can see it walk sure either picking out Charlie Delta. So I'm here at Delta, and I'm back to Alpha. And so we're basically all done with this. Now, did anyone have any questions? Let's see. Toby, does the timeline for the escalation of smoke and fire also link to all location pictures? And the answer is the timeline goes out through the whole scenario, starting from the beginning at 0, and it just keeps counting. And so that means that if you have some time delay at 30 seconds or 60 seconds, regardless of which picture you're at, it's going to be 60 seconds over the whole scenario. So if you switch to a new location, it still is on the same scenario time. If you now create it like the escalation of smoke, like we were talking about, let's say we have here smoke and fire, and then we're going to make it worse, it's still on the same scenario time. It doesn't reset the time or anything right now. So if you're going to be timing effects that are coming in, it's going to be from the beginning of the scenario. That may be something that we add a feature later where you can reset that time. But so for right now, it's not. Thanks, Toby. Are there limitations on the duration of time, or can it be set to any length? Good question, Frank. You can set it to any length. This is I'm going to go back over here. It can be a little bit confusing, because if you just click on an effect, let's say over here that I want this smoke to fade in, I go here, say delay timing, and I fade in, it looks like I've got a window here of about 30 seconds to fade in. And so if I want this to be more than 30 seconds, I just type in how much I want it to be here. So I say like 45 seconds. Now when it exceeds that, when it goes past that slider value, then it gets rid of the slider, because the slider is no longer relevant. So 45 seconds, this is all done in seconds. So I can make it 60 seconds, 66, or I can make it 125 seconds or whatever, and it fades in there. So that would be 2 minutes and 5 seconds. So if I actually go here, you're not going to see anything. Now, if you actually are doing scenarios where you have a lot of timing and you don't want to wait for 2 minutes or 5 minutes, there is a new feature here called Set Scenario Time. When I set it, it pauses the scenario, and right now it's at 12 seconds, and I can advance the scenario time to, let's say, 120 seconds. And it starts again, and now in just a couple seconds, you should be seeing the smoke. There, the smoke pops in. Even though now the scenario time that we can see over here, set scenario time, we're really at 131 seconds. And I can back that up as well, not just forward. I can say, let's go to, let's say, 30 seconds or something. So that's a way you can kind of slide around the different time. When you're doing scenarios that might be 5 or 10 or 20 minutes, if you're kind of timing them out. So what we've done here is to make this walk around. We haven't really worked on the effects, but you've seen how to use the reciprocal location, the reciprocal navigation to set both. It's confusing because when on the surface it looks like the left button might always be Bravo and the right always may be something. But the way to read this is looking at the current picture, which direction, where would the arrow take you? And so it's for each different picture, you can set up your arrows in however way you want it to be. So for example, with that alpha thing, now what Frank had asked before about different conditions, if I now actually go here and create, let's say, an alpha knockdown, and so if I say copy alpha's assets, and if I don't set a background, it will use whatever background from the list here. If I set a background, it will override whatever thing the background I'm copying. So if I say create here, this now here is alpha knockdown. And it's a little confusing because it looks like alpha. It's the same picture. But I could go here and let me change this brightness to be higher. Maybe I'll make this even a lazier type of smoke. Let me also get rid of that fire. And here's a little trick for people who haven't seen what we call the selection rotator. I need to go in to change that fire, let's say to get rid of it. I could move this over and try and hit it, try and move this thing, but it can be kind of tricky. We have something here called the selection rotator. You click on it. This is a way to get to other things on the screen that are beneath the other effects. So when I did show selection rotator, this thing shows up, this button, and if I click on this thing, you'll see it will highlight all the different elements, all the effects. And when I get to the effect I want to change, even though it's not the most forward one, you see they'll highlight them in this sort of purple thing. Then I click on that effect, and now I'm editing that element, even though I still have all the other stuff in place. If I want to see that element clearly, I can just click on this switch here, hide other elements. And now I can go and do my changes just the same way. But in this situation, I just want to get rid of that fire. So I'm going to get rid of this fire here, delete it, and it's done. Now, alpha knock right now is not set up on that circuit that we did. If we do our play, you'll see here, oh, I actually still have that time delay for a long time. So let me actually go back and change this. So the delay timing here, I'm going to fade it in, I'm going to just have it at 0. So if I actually am here, you'll see there's my knockdown smoke. But there's no navigation arrow here because it's not connected to any other location. So if I want to connect it to a location, let me actually connect it over to the alpha location. So let me go over to the alpha location, and let me also just change the scenario time here because I'm going to fade it in so it doesn't wait as well like we had before. That's going to be at 0. So I'm here at alpha, And let's say I want to make the navigation, set navigation. I want to make, I've got my left and right stuff set up. I'm going to set this middle one here to be going up to knockdown. And I really could use any button, but this middle one is kind of convenient to sort of imply a change of condition, a change of state. So if I set that middle one, that middle up arrow, and I say up arrow, go to knockdown, now when I hit done, if I play the simulation, you see I get a little up arrow here, and I can, because of the reciprocal navigation, well, actually maybe someone would have seen that before. I didn't actually, I had reciprocal navigation set to be off. That's why it didn't add the down arrow. So if I now go back here, let me go correct that. I'm at alpha location, and if I set navigation here, yeah, see reciprocal navigation was set to no. That's why when I created the up arrow going to knockdown, it didn't automatically create the knockdown going back to alpha. So I'm going to delete this. The way you delete a location, a navigation, is you click on it and click remove this path. So once you click remove that path, it removes that path. If the reciprocal navigation is set no like this, then it doesn't automatically take off the opposite direction. Like so, remember when we were actually creating the location, if you make it go one direction, it automatically adds the other location. So if you're deleting, it still is respecting if you're this reciprocal navigation. So now if I'm here, I set reciprocal navigation. I didn't really have to delete it. I just wanted to show how you would delete things. But if I went to reciprocal navigation and I say set the middle button here to alpha knockdown, now if I actually flip over to alpha knockdown, I'm here now, and I go here to set navigation, you'll see it automatically added the down arrow, the little down center thing. So if I'm now actually running this thing, let me go back to, you'll notice actually here, if I play the simulation, I'm at the alpha knockdown. But there is actually a location that's the start of the simulation, the initial location. So if I actually go to reset simulation, this is what would happen when you play a simulation. It starts from the initial location. So when you play a simulation, the initial location is the first location that's shown. And that was our alpha side. So if I go here to alpha knock over here, I click, and I'm getting over here. And so now if you wanted to create your walkaround for the knockdown condition, you would create new locations based on BCD and everything, and you would link them to your alpha knockdown location. And so you basically create circuits based on the current condition, the condition that you actually want to have. So that's essentially how you could do multiple locations. It shows navigation. It shows you how you do different conditions. Now, once you have a bunch of conditions, I mean, you may not just want to go to a single knockdown. You can really assign any arrow here to go to any other location. So you could have different conditions linked from the same location. However, you may not want to show people what you're doing. Let's say you want to be able to change to a different condition, but you don't want to show them which one you're pressing, because maybe there's a good path and a bad path, and your students are going to know which the bad path is, and that's going to tip them off. There's this thing at the bottom which lets you hide your navigation arrows when that cluster is shown, and you can even get rid of all this navigation stuff, all these ornaments in the menu by going hide menu. Once you do hide menu, they disappear. They're actually still here. If you click on it, you'll see. If I actually click back, it would be here. This thing is still over here, but it's just hidden, so it's not distracting. So now on the Windows and Mac version, you can use the keystrokes to actually do navigation. So I could actually say, I'm using the A key right here. I'm going to hit A, and you'll see that A is left. If you look on your keyboard, you'll see A and D. A is left and D is right. So if I keep going left, it will take me left around my structure. And that's regardless of whether you have the navigation set or not. So if I hit D, that will take me over to not just coincidentally delta side, but it'll take me right if there is a right arrow hidden. I mean, a right arrow set. If there was no right arrow set in your program, I mean in your simulation, the D would have no effect. So the keys that are critical, A and D, A goes left, D goes right. If there was an arrow at the top, W would go up and X goes down on the keyboard. The inside arrows, the ones that we talked about before, instead of being right in that cluster on the keyboard, it's the up and down arrow, which is in different places on your keyboard. So if in this situation, the up arrow, since I'm at alpha going to knockdown, up arrow will take me to alpha knockdown. And the down arrow will take me back down to the alpha, whatever that arrived, the initial condition. So on the Windows and Mac, there's the keyboard, which is useful. On the iPad and mobile, and even now on Windows and Mac, there's something else we call tap regions for navigation. So if I actually hide that, let me leave that over here. Let me bring the menu back here to show you. There's something when you have multiple location called tap regions. Show tap regions. Now, if the arrow is, if those clusters are shown, it won't show you those regions. The tap region is a way to click on your screen to actually activate the arrow. So you have to hide the navigation window, that's the arrow cluster, before the regions are active. So what will happen, I'm going to hide the navigation arrow here, and I'm going to show the tap regions, and hopefully it will show you at least a little bit. You see, what happens is the tap regions divide the screen into the different quadrants and into different sections, just like the navigation here. So I'll do this again quickly. You'll see there's 10 different arrows available, and you'll see if you see it quickly, you'll see it's divided into 10 areas. And each of those areas act the same way if you click on that area. So here, if I want to go left, I just click in the left area. And this is useful on the iPad or iPhone or Android, where you don't have access typically to a keyboard. And so you can actually just click in the direction you want to go. And that's in place of using the navigation. And that includes that up and down. This is so if you're giving a class and you've got your iPad connected to a screen, and now the classes or whoever is in command is working properly, and now you want to go to knockdown, instead of actually showing the arrow, or if you don't have access to the keyboard, you can just click on the middle section here, which is the equivalent of that little semicircle in the navigation. And similarly, I can click down to go here. So the tap region is actually useful, show tap regions, just to kind of remind you the rough area. But now if I'm clicking an area like here down, there is no, what I'm clicking right now was where it would correspond to this arrow that's pointing down. But there is no navigation set for that, so it really isn't doing anything. It's only when the navigation, like going to the right, where it's actually set up for the current location. So does that make sense in terms of the tap regions? I know it's makes just a number of different ways that you can actually use for navigation through your scenario. And so I don't see any kinds of questions, so I'll keep going. Maybe I'll take just a 30-second break to see if there's anything particular before. What I'm going to get into right now is making it a little simpler to set your navigation all at once, rather than bouncing around to different locations. Okay, I don't see any kind of I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to keep going. So now what we were doing here with our A, B, C, or whatever, arrival, A, knockdown, was when we wanted to set a navigation, we clicked on the location like A, we did set navigation, we did our thing, and then we hit done, and then we went to Bravo, and we did the same thing, set navigation. So it could get kind of tedious because it's just all the screen flipping back and forth. And that's why we made something that's a little more convenient and easier. If we were to now actually, convenient in terms of setting the navigation. If you notice at set navigation, when I go here, there's something up in the top right corner. There's this little arrow here, which if I click on the arrow, I actually get a list of all the locations. See, so right now I'm setting the navigation for Bravo, but and so whatever I change over here is for the Bravo side. If I, though, without having to, if all I'm working on is setting up the navigation, I don't want to go back to the Alpha side and set navigation, Charlie navigation, everything like that. What I can do here is I actually can go here and say, okay, I'm done with Bravo for the time. Let me set navigation for Alpha. Let me set navigation for Delta. And actually, if you'll see here, when I set navigation for arrival, you'll see it set up. So this is a more convenient way than having to go back to the location, set navigation, and kind of back and forth. So what we're going to do now, when I have for my knockdown, you see there's alpha knockdown, it goes down to alpha. What I'm going to do now is to set up a Bravo Charlie Delta knockdown and do all the location navigation just through this more convenient way. Now, I would say when you're starting to make your locations and navigations, you definitely want to go the sort of the long way that we showed in the beginning. It's easier to keep in your mind that you're working on alpha, you're working on Bravo. When I always have tried to explain using this feature and people haven't really done the navigation the traditional way, it can get confusing because you kind of forget where you are. So I definitely would say work on a particular location. Let's say work on Bravo, set your navigation, then move over, then go over to Charlie, and then set your navigation. And once you kind of get the hang of that, you're familiar, then you can use this sort of convenience function inside the navigation. So what I'm going to do is now create locations for, I'm going to say for Bravo knockdown, and I'm just going to copy Bravo's assets there, and I'm going to, let me just go over here and say a new location for Charlie knockdown, and I'm going to copy whatever Charlie's assets are, and I'm going to also do a new location for Delta knockdown. So I'm going to go to Delta assets and create that. So now I actually have a long list. You'll see A, B, C, D knock. I've got arrival. But now A, B, C, and D are all set up with the circuit. And A knockdown is set to go between A knockdown and A. But it doesn't copy the navigation for B knock, C knock, or D. It just copies the location. So what I need to do now is set up my circuit for A, B, C, and D among themselves so they work properly. So what I can do here is say I can go and I'm here at D knock, but I'm going to say D knock here. I can actually go here and say, so from the Delta side, I want to go left is going to take me to alpha knock, and right is going to take me to Charlie knock. And I have this reciprocal navigation so that when I set up to alpha and I set up to Charlie, they're going to set up the opposite arrow back to Delta. So it's a convenience thing. Now instead of me going over back to Charlie knock and Bravo knock and things, I'm going to bring this down here and say, okay, let me go back to alpha knock. And alpha knock here I have right goes to Delta knock, and I'm going to say left is going to go to Bravo knock. And I don't have to press done. That's the convenience. I can now just go and say, okay, I did alpha knock. I'm going to go now to Bravo knock. And I'm going to say, okay, that's set for me. Let me go left is going to take me to Charlie knock. And so you can see the convenience of the reciprocal navigation as I can set up my whole navigation without having to just painfully go every single arrow. But I can, if I want to do every single arrow, I can turn that off and do it. So now I've done Bravo, Alpha, and Delta knock. I'm going to now go to Charlie knock, but Charlie knock should be taken care of because of the reciprocal navigation. I set up going to Charlie from Delta, and I set up going to Charlie from Bravo. So that's why Charlie is taken care of. Now if I want to actually I'm at Delta knock over here, so I'm going to just make sure that I'm at the right place here. I'm going to call this one here. This is going to be my, I'm going to change this text to be, this is going to be Delta knock. Since I didn't really put any effects in there, I'm just going to go here and so we can clearly see what's the difference between the different, I'm going to go simple text, and I'm going to change this text. The text is going to be, Charlie knock. And I'm going to go here. Again, anyone have any questions, certainly just chime in on the chat window there. Bravo. And I'm just going to go here to kind of round this out. Text, this is going to be, this is my Bravo knock. And we already kind of know what our alpha knock is. So if I actually now play this scenario, and I'm starting off at Bravo knock because I'm editing it. So the real scenario starts at alpha initial, but there's Bravo knock. And if I go to alpha knock, you'll see there's that. If I go click here, Delta knock, Charlie knock. Whereas if I now go back, and I have my access right through to the regular, to the initial circuit is through the down arrow here back to alpha. I click on alpha, and now if I do delta, you'll see I'm at a different picture. I'm at delta, whatever the initial condition for delta was. So that's how you actually create different circuits. Now, there's no reason that you couldn't also make, yeah, so Frank's saying, is there a limit on number of circuits? It's really just your sanity. I mean, you can see there's a lot of accounting once you have a whole bunch of circuits, and you have to remember which button goes where. You may want to also, there's no reason that the knockdown is only limited through the alpha location. If I wanted to now say, let me say Bravo knock here, I could actually make Bravo knock go down to Bravo with navigation. I just go here and say, I'm setting navigation for Bravo knock. I could say Bravo knock down goes to Bravo. And I could say over here, so I'm going to set navigation. I'm jumping around here, so just may want to think about this. I'm Charlie. I'm Charlie knock. And I'll do over here for delta. I'm going to say delta up arrow is going to go to delta knock. So now what I've got is I have these sort of places I can leap from one level to the other, again, with just this navigation. So I'm at Bravo knock here. If I go down here, I can get to Bravo. I can reach the knockdown from whichever location I happen to be at. So that's kind of a convenient way to, let's see, Brent is saying, did I miss if you can auto set the different circuits to run at a timeline? Sorry, that's okay. No, right now the circuits are running at the same time, which is the scenario time starting from 0. We may, if people are interested, actually have a little token or something which can reset the time to allow to do that. It becomes a bit more complex, but right now the time is basically from the start of the scenario. So the time just keeps going until you finish the scenario. If you want to reset the simulation, that resets the time back to 0. The last thing I want to show you in terms of these locations, once you start getting a lot of these locations, you may, like here, we did it pretty orderly, A, B, C, D, arrival, A knock, B knock, or whatever. But let's say you want to get rid of locations. Let's say you want to reorder them. You want to, or change the initial location. See, so if we actually go back over here to play the simulation, you'll see as I say play of what commercial 2 here, it's starting at my alpha location. I want it to start at arrival. I don't want to start at the arrival location, not at this place that I put it. If I go back here, I want to now edit this because the question is, okay, it's starting here at alpha, but near the beginning I made this arrival location. How do I set that to be the one that the simulation starts at? Well, that's what there's thing over here, manage location, it does. If I click manage location, this is an easier way to, if you wanted to reorder them, not that the order is important, it's really, the order is not important except for in that little location menu, but I could if I wanted to say, let's say my arrival here, let me bring that one up to the top so that when I'm editing the menus, I'll see that at the top. But you'll see here at A initial, the initial location gets a special marker. If I want to now change that, I don't want A to be the initial location. I want my arrival. I click on which I want to be my initial. I go to the menu and say set selection as initial location. And it will just say replace A with arrival as default location. I say yes. So now when I'm done here, arrival is going to be the first one that's played when I play the simulation. And if I want to move these around, let's say I wanted to move these closer to each other for editing purposes, I could click on this and change the order. It just depends on, the order doesn't really matter at all for when you're running the simulation. It's all for that list when you're editing the simulation. So if I now say A knock, B knock, C knock, or whatever, you can see also I can copy locations easier here. So if I wanted to copy this, the same thing as new, it's the same as like a new location does the same thing, but copies everything. I don't think it copies the navigation. So that's it's very similar to new, but copy doesn't ask you. You can see it doesn't ask you about the background. It just automatically copies it. So that might be more useful if you're doing different conditions. You're just copying the whole location. Where new gives you the chance to change the background picture. So if I now go back here, just to show, we reordered the, I'm at arrival, we reordered the list of locations, and there's arrival, A knock, B, whatever. Now if I go back, when I actually go and play the simulation now, let me go back one more. I said play simulation, and I say commercial 2. Now you see it's playing from the arrival location. And that's when I hit arrival. I'm there now, I'm at A, and I'm ready to do my circuit or ready to go up to my different condition. But now notice I can't get back to arrival because that's the way I had designed it. I mean, you could certainly make it easy enough with the reciprocal to go back to arrival, and if I decide later, oops, I really wanted to go back to arrival for some reason. So what I can go back here, I can always add in the arrow. So I can go back here and say, going back to commercial 2, and I say here, I'm at my commercial 2 arrival location. I can go here and set navigation, and that's going forward to there. I could turn it on and reset the arrow here. So if I wanted to delete this, I could actually click here, and remember when you delete, you click on the arrow you want, remove the path, and if this reciprocal is set, if the arrow was set backwards from, let's say, alpha back to arrival, it would also remove that link. But now I can say, okay, I want reciprocal on. Let me say, yes, I'm going to say go forward and hit alpha. So now it's, when I did that with reciprocal on, it's saying going forward goes to alpha, and likewise going, or the opposite, alpha is going to go back or down to arrival. And we can see that if we go here to set navigation for alpha. Now you'll see that the arrow pointing down is now going back. So we're wrapping up just the last couple minutes. I hope that that's giving you a better sense of navigation. Some of the stuff we've kind of cruised through. Let me actually stop my, let's see, it should be over there. And